In business, everyone's got their own way of thinking about the purpose and their own preference. So I might text you, then I might shoot Jessica an email, and then I'll go to this tool, that tool. And when everyone's got their own idea of when and how to use all these tools, it creates what I call in the book a scavenger hunt, where it takes longer to find what you're looking for than it does oftentimes to just get the work done. And it's like speaking a new language. Like work has changed, especially in the last year with AI, but all these tools are brand new. It's like less than 10 years old, and no one's been taught when and how to best use these tools in the workplace. My mission is to save millions and millions of hours of just wasted, unproductive, soul-sucking, not interesting time so that people can have a better work experience, add more value, both to themselves and to the business.
Welcome to the Jasmine Star Show, where we talk about life, business, mindset. And today we are going to talk about productivity, efficiency, communication, making hours and time in your day by not working harder, but getting a heck of a lot more smarter and organized. I couldn't be more excited to invite to the show Nick Sonnenberg. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so a little bit of a backstory. I want to bring everybody to how you and I ended up in this room. We met, like maybe a couple months ago through a program called Vive, through Vayner. And so for people who don't know, it is a leadership and growth accelerator, and they would bring in guest speakers. So every week we get a guest speaker. And prior to this event, I don't know who you are, but I'm just there. I'm there to learn. I'm there to soak up. So prior to our meeting, they said, please fill out these 3-4 questions survey for Nick to come in and talk to us about optimizing our inbox, what I think was referred to inbox zero. So I go through these questions, and then we start the conversation, and there was a few people in the room who said, oh, Nick, his system could potentially save me 60,000 hours a year. And I'm like, what in the world? So for anybody who's drowning in an inbox, why don't we just talk a little bit there?
Yeah. Well, look, everyone uses email. We've been using it for decades. Not everyone uses Slack. Not everyone uses Asana, all these tools. But what we found at Leverage is the first place that people should start is their email, because we all use it. We've never been taught how to use it. And it's a single player game, basically. If the rest of your team doesn't follow the best practices, but you do, you get the full benefit. Versus take Slack. If your team, half of them are using it, half of them refuse to use it, you're not going to get the value, right? Because then you have to start keeping track. Oh, Nick doesn't like Slack. You have to email him. But Jessica likes it, so let's Slack her. And then you know, what's the value of a cell phone if you're the only person that owns a cell phone? It's zero, right? You need people to respond to you. So email is a great starting point, and usually in less than an hour or two, we can completely change someone's life and as it relates to how efficient they use email. And if you're getting more than 50, 100 emails every day, even if you process each email a few seconds faster, easy math, take 120 emails a day, even if that's an extra 3 seconds per email, right? It adds up very, very, very quickly. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And time is the most precious commodity that we have. And part of what piqued my interest is I have a weird relationship with time. I became very aware of time when my mom became very ill. She, unbeknownst to us, she had brain cancer, but started off with a lot of symptoms. And over time, she continued to be hospitalized. And then us realizing how finite time is, I thought to myself, if she doesn't make it, how am I going to start maximizing my time and availability for her? And so I think that early on, probably when I was 24, 25, I started looking at time very, very differently, became very strict with it, and started creating systems. Now, I created ad hoc systems that were just well, I think this is helping me. And when I heard you speak, I realized that the systems that we had been putting together were such a great start for where we were, but there's an opportunity for us to optimize those systems. So before we get there, I really want to bring everybody into the conversation and say, you are watching and you are listening, and there is something in your life or business that feels like it's taking too long. It feels like you're drowning, which is why when we talk about the CPR method with Nick, it's going to relieve us. It's going to put oxygen in areas that we desperately need help, but then find a way that it is sustainable. So before we get into CPR, before we start telling people this is how we're going to change our life and business by getting organized in the front end, which is ultimately saving us time, I'm in an elevator with you, 4 floors down. What do you tell me you do? Because you already made a reference to Leverage, so I want to bring everybody up to speed.
Well, I have a few things I do, but as it relates to the book and Leverage, I'm an operational efficiency consultant and the CEO of Leverage. We do operational efficiency training and consulting. So we help organizations and teams maximize their productivity by leveraging all these modern day systems and tools to their highest and best use. So that's the very quick version. And then the next little bit after that would be in business, everyone's got their own way of thinking about the purpose and everyone's got their own preference. So I might text you, then I might shoot Jessica an email, and then I'll go to this tool, that tool. And when everyone's got their own idea of when and how to use all these tools, it creates what I call in the book a scavenger hunt, where it takes longer to find what you're looking for than it does oftentimes to just get the work done. And it's like speaking a new language. Like work has changed, especially in the last year with AI, but all these tools are brand new. It's like less than 10 years old, and no one's been taught when and how to best use these tools in the workplace. So that's what I'm passionate about. My mission is to save millions and millions of hours of just wasted, unproductive, soul-sucking, not interesting time so that people can have a better work experience, add more value, both to themselves and to the business.
If that is not the most beautiful sound clip, I already see it sitting on the front end of our podcast episode. It's like, I'm here to save you millions of time-sucking hours. Yes. Okay, so there's two places I want to go. I want to go to CPR. I also want to get into origin story. Where do you think is going to serve like listeners and watchers right now the best? Do we go into CPR, sell the framework and say we're going to get to it with like real life examples with Jasmine, or do we get into origin story, CPR, and then real life examples?
I could do like the very quick origin story, right? Because
it's juicy. It is juicy. I mean, I don't want like the Days of Our Lives version, but like I don't want you to like. It's good. It's really get your teeth knocked out.
Yeah.
Take big risks. You're lucky to have a very fortunate family. I'm giving away too much. I'm just seeding it up for you.
Well, after I got out of finance and I got into entrepreneurship, the early version of, I've always been passionate about time. So after I got out of finance, I was building a productivity app. And then the first...
On your own, self-funded with a team, what did that look like?
I bootstrapped, like I funded most of it. And then I did a friend and family round.
And then who is it for? I'm a storyteller. Like I need to know the tea, like that.
So it was called Calvin, and it came out around the same time as Calendly. Do you know Calendly?
Yeah, I do.
And it was in that space. And if you're familiar with like Outlook, when you're within a company, you can see the free busy of people, and there's automations and things to make it easy to book times within a team.
Yes.
I was always thinking, why is it so difficult to do this in your social life, right? So on average, for two people to find a time to meet, it takes 7.2 back and forth to find a common time.
Yes.
And it's exponentially harder with groups. So Calvin was trying to solve the problem of group planning more so, where the app would know the free busy of a bunch of people. You could propose times. The app would automatically kind of propose the best times based off of when you're free and I'm free, and then we would vote on it.
Okay.
So still hasn't really been cracked, but a consumer-facing app is quite difficult. Yeah, quite difficult. And then I had this early version idea of Leverage, but back then it was an outsourcing platform. And so I was having dinner one night with a close friend of mine that became, back then, a close friend of mine that became my business partner. And it was on the back end of one of the biggest VA companies going bankrupt. So the day that they went bankrupt, we were having dinner and we were brainstorming, what did they do wrong? And we came up with this really interesting new business model.
A restaurant, a dive restaurant? What, like describe here, because I always like to go into the founder's story. Because what happens is like the best stories are when people can interject themselves. And so what they hear is like this day trader who's like creating an app and he's just so smart, and like that's the good for him thing. And that doesn't resonate because we all sit at these like either these moments, and sometimes I like to be like, was there smoke in the air? Was it smog outside? Was it sunset? Like it puts us in there and be like, this was a guy who came off a series of successes, also not as big as successes. He's sitting with somebody, and at the peril of somebody else's company going under, there's an opportunity. So
totally. I mean, we were at one of the spots downtown New York that we would always go to, an Italian restaurant.
Okay.
And we were just brainstorming, why did they go bankrupt? What's missing in this space? And again, it's...
Were you familiar with this space?
We were very familiar with the space, because at that point, I was already pretty aggressively using not just the tools, but VAs and a whole bunch of outsourcing. So I was very familiar with it. And back then, in the VA space, you kind of had two choices. One, you get a dedicated virtual assistant, VA, and a limitation of a dedicated person, VA, EA, is one, they have a limited bandwidth and limited skill set. And then the third problem is if they leave, you kind of get a little screwed for a little period of time. And then the other model that was quite common was this distributed model. And so every time you post a task, you get a different person. So that fixes some of the issues, but if every time you need to do something, you're getting a new person, they don't build that connection with you, right? So the idea was, why not a hybrid and kind of the best of both worlds, where you get this team, and if you like one person in particular to do something, you can assign it to them. Otherwise, it kind of gets routed by our internal kind of operator to the right person.
Okay.
Right. So we came up with this, and at the end of the dinner, I was like, look,
this is... What's the experience of your co-founder?
He was in the productivity space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Speaker, author.
Got it.
So he had quite a big following. So I said, look, let's leverage your following. Could you get 5 clients tomorrow? Because I could build the back end by tomorrow and we'll launch on, this was a Sunday. I was like, let's launch on Tuesday. And so we did that. And this was like duct tape and spitting together a whole bunch of different tools, Trello, Zapier, all these things. But we got it to work. And then you fast forward a month and we got asked to speak at this conference right after Tony Robbins. So like Tony Robbins was like the day 2 speaker. And then we did a half-day workshop on productivity, efficiency, what we were up to in this space.
Because of your co-founders like legitimacy and brand within the field that was that already established? Like how are you landing the speaking gig a month after?
That was really piggybacking off of his relationship with the person that was running the event.
Okay, cool. Okay.
But anyway, we crushed it.
Not
and
too
like,
shabby.
We crushed it. And like out of 100 people in the room, like 95 signed up. So like within a month, all of a sudden.
Wait, signed up for what?
For this outsourced virtual assistant company that was the early version of Leverage. And so you fast forward a month after this dinner, we're already doing, tens of thousands of dollars in recurring revenue, and we didn't have the systems though to support it. And so you fast forward a year and we've got 150 people on the team, fully bootstrapped, doing 7 figures of revenue, which sounds great, but back to process.
Right.
We grew so fast and got ahead of our skis that even though we were the tech process people, we couldn't keep up. We got way too over our skis. Like we just couldn't keep up. And when you're too busy, you start having to work in your business versus on your business.
That's right.
Right? And when you're so stuck in the weeds or you're drowning in work, which is why I called the book Come Up for Air, like literally you're drowning. By the time you get through all the issues, problems, responses to people, like you're 12, 14 hours into the day, like you got to call it quits. And so where do you find the time to fix the process or, really understand what's going on and like spend the 100 hours that it takes to fix the fundamental issues? And so one day in October of 2017, we're having a coffee in the morning, and before I could even take my first sip, he tells me he's out, and he doesn't give me 2 weeks or 2 days notice. It's like 2 minutes notice. And
so you guys meet in person for coffee?
It's always been a remote company, but sometimes we would meet in person.
And so
we met like we would normally meet every once in a while.
And you don't see any of this coming?
We were having some friction going into it, but I didn't see it happening kind of the way that it happened. It was pretty shocking.
Okay.
And this is just my war story, So although it sounds cool to, grow bootstrap 7 figures, 150 people, we were losing a ton of money. Like that's the positive, right?
Yeah.
If under the hood, it's like negative $500,000 a year, $750,000 in debt, 15% churn, but 20% new clients coming in. So it's just like good marketing masking a broken system and process. Ooh. So when he left and no one knew who I was, minus maybe 5 team members and 5 clients, I had to choose, do I bankrupt this company or do I try to fix it? And I decided to stick it out because I could see the path to kind of cleaning things up. But man, in 3 months, we lost like 40% of clients, revenue. As you heard in the past, like my dad took a second mortgage on his house to help me make payroll. So
what's going through your mind though? Like we hear this and we don't, like Brene Brown calls it gold-plated grit. This hard thing that I did, we made it through. I now have this amazing, incredible company. But like when you're asking your dad for this, like where is your head? And what kind of risk? I mean, you would know risk and assessment, I think, far better than the average person.
Yeah, I would say like I'm a professional at the, risk in a certain lens. I don't know if this is a positive or negative trait with me, but I think I have so much self-confidence that I can just figure something out. And like if I've got to make a bet on something, like I'm going to bet on myself because like historically I've always been able to figure something out or overcome something. So
I want to pause for that. Like, man, that like hit deep. I want that skill. I believe it, but I don't know if I've ever put words around it.
I don't know if it's like the best, like it's gotten me into uncomfortable situations though, that mentality, but I still to this day, believe that. And so when something comes up,
uncomfortable positions for uncommon success. Like if we're just going to be like, call a spade, you could not be. The uncomfortable situation, let's just talk about right now, is like your dad and you saying, okay, if I'm going to make a bet, I'm going to bet on me. Okay, but had you not had that uncomfortable situation, there's just no way that you would have ever built this massively successful business that you have now.
Yeah, and look, even before that, right? Like there was a lot of things like I overcame and kind of just proved myself over the years that I've got that figured out muscle. So anyway, although I was stressed and tired, I still always just had in the back of my head, I'll figure out a way to make this work.
Okay.
But the challenge is it takes, just like it takes money to make money, it takes time to make time. And so where do you find the time when you're drowning in work already? And so one day I just kind of sat back and I was like, okay, I need more time. I can fix all this, but I need like 500 hours just dedicated to kind of fixing this. How am I going to do that when I'm already just drowning.
That is real.
Right? And so I just started doing this audit, like, where am I wasting time? And the first bucket was, by the time I replied to the 150 team members, clients, emails, Slack messages, the day's kind of shot. Yeah. So got to fix that one. Got to fix the email Slack problem. So I call that communication. So that's the C of CPR. Right. Then the next thing was I couldn't just click a button and know who's working on what do I need to do, what's the status of this project. And because I didn't have a good system for that, it was causing extra communication, right? Because when it's like whack-a-mole, like you can't, like it's all interrelated. So if you don't have project management, work management tool, if you can't answer those questions, well, that causes more of the communication overload. So I knew this P planning was another thing. Like I wanted to be able to click a button and just be able to answer any question. Within 2 clicks, how can I answer any question that I need without having to go and wait for a human, bother them? And like, honestly, I have to pay them to answer me, right? So like, how do I avoid all that? And then the last part was resources. So how does everything work? What are the SOPs, the processes, right? And I was already pretty good at that because had I not been when he left, we for sure would have gone bankrupt. So anyway, I broke it down into these 3 buckets and things just started quickly turning around. And then people started reaching out, asking me to consult. So I got to work with cryptocurrency companies and poop spray companies and some of the world's top, coaches like Tony Robbins and others.
So what was the offer at the time that then parlayed into the consulting?
That was still the outsourcing platform.
Okay.
So we were doing a whole bunch of different things. Like lesson learned, the riches are in the niches. Don't try to be everything to everyone. One of the big problems that we had from a business model was we were booking flights, but then we were also doing their social media and then we were doing this and that. Like it was just a really difficult business. Like we should have just started, we do these types of tasks for these types of people so we could get really good at processes and like hiring for that one thing.
Good.
But like we were just like, one of the benefits is like we're a one-stop shop, and like that's hard to come out of the gate. Like even like Amazon, they started with books and then they started adding things, right?
Yes.
So anyway, I learned that one the hard way. But
so you have that.
We had that, and then I started this. You asked me before, what are all the different companies I have? So I had Leverage, which was the outsourcing platform. Now it's focused on operational efficiency training, right? So we have training programs for Outlook and Slack and Asana and all these things.
So you're no longer doing the...
We don't do any of that outsourcing stuff anymore. But the evolution was we went from like virtual assistant work, and then we just kept going up market. So then it started getting into like marketing.
I love that.
And then it started getting into like, hey, let's set up automations for people. And then that started seeming like, hey, there's a sweet spot here with operations. At the same time, people started reaching out, asking me to consult them. So I would go into like Poopery, and they had very similar issues to what we would have, but obviously different, and they were bigger and stuff. But that CPR framework was just as helpful for them as it was for cryptocurrency company or even my small company at the time.
Can I get a little granular?
Yeah.
Like when a company like Poopery or something along those lines, they bring you in, who are they planting you with? Are you working with the COO? Like where?
It just depends. Like a company like that, like Susie Batiste, the CEO, we became really close friends. Like I would work, with her and the executive team, and then, try to roll this stuff out.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But then, you work with, a Fortune 10 company. Like I'm not going to be working with the CEO. I will be working with, say, like a VP within, some department or team.
Okay.
So anyway, started a consulting company, like where I would just me solo go in and, share with them, okay, like you should use this, you should do that, you should do it this way. And it was really helpful for them. So then the light bulb kind of went off when it's like, hey, all these tools are just a few years old. It's immensely helpful if people understand when and how to use it. There's no training whatsoever. They're getting a ton of value. Maybe the better opportunity is to focus on this.
Let's go to the origin story. Remind me to bring up Loom and SOPs.
Sure.
Because I totally geeked out. So, but let's go to origin story and like this matters because.
I was a high frequency trader. So my background is I'm a mathematician, and as a high frequency trader, I would code computers to trade stocks at microsecond speeds purely based off of math. And, we would trade billions of dollars a day trying to capture fractions of a penny, fully automated. And this was back before tools like Loom and Process Street or Asana or all these tools. So in finance, when you're a trader, you'd have to do what's called a block leave. So for 2 weeks, you're locked out of everything. You can't use the elevator, you can't get into the building, you can't get into email, and they lock you out to stress test and make sure that you're not hiding anything. And so before I would leave, I'd have to document how my book traded and teach people, et cetera. And we didn't have these fancy tools, but still you'd write it down. And the point is, every year for 8 years, I'd come back and there was always some improvement to how my book traded. And that's because fresh eyes spark innovation. And so if you think about all the benefits of this process, like one, God forbid I get hit by a bus or decide to just pick up and leave, at least someone else knows how to do that thing. Right? But also fresh eyes spark innovation. Like even though I'm the expert at that algorithm, someone that hasn't been in it for, hundreds or thousands of hours comes with like a new perspective and they're like, why are you doing this? And oftentimes you just keep doing things in a certain way because it's the way you've always done it.
Yes.
So a big benefit of documenting things is you can give it to someone else and have them test doing it and then have them ask questions. And a lot of times you'll see that the people will say, oh yeah, you're right. I guess we don't need to be doing that. Yeah. I'm just used to it. So I really built this muscle in finance in terms of automation, the power of documenting process, the power of having someone else stress test things. And most importantly, it's the sum of small gains. Oftentimes people are just looking for this magic pill, like where can I save 20 hours a week? And sometimes you can, like the inbox zero we were talking about. That's a quick, depending on what you get, that's a quick 5 to 10 hours. That's like the Ozempic of efficiency. But outside of that, oftentimes it's really just the sum of small gains. It's like shave off 2 seconds here, a minute there, and you just look for like thousands of these small things and they all stack up.
Can I share a personal example just rather recently? Yeah. So I hired an EA. We went through our onboarding and we actually screen test. We're looking for people who are process oriented, just naturally. It is a bonus, but we're really honing in on this. And so I said, okay, so since you pride yourself in systems, I want you to do our onboarding and I want you to give us feedback on the onboarding. If you feel supported, what do we think is missing? But also, is there any way that you might be able to shave time off? Homegirl came back with 2 main points.
What did she come back with?
She came back with, because she's my EA, the only person who has access to my inbox, she needs to get verified into my Gmail. So she said, as part of my onboarding, we should have scheduled, automated, when we're going to have our 5-minute meeting so that you can verify my device getting on. Didn't think about that. Mm-hmm. And then also, she comes on, we usually bring people on part-time first. Mm-hmm. So she came on part-time and we don't share our team calendar. And she had said it would be important as a contractor to have the team calendar and then understand we have mental health days. She's like, team calendar, I get access to it. Then I can go through and look at what questions I have, send those to you. You can answer asynchronously to better prepare me for things like what is group coaching, what is mental health days, stuff like vernacular that we use that she was unaware of. So
interesting.
She was good.
When you set these people up, did they get a personal email address?
Yes.
So something that I've done is create just kind of department shared email addresses. So for example, my EA, it's EA at Get Leverage.
See, okay, let's talk about this because I asked the team. I was just like, should we just standardize this? Because for a while we've been using info at. That's just been a catch-all. I send everybody there all the time. And I said, maybe we should have an EA. But they said it sounds more personalized.
It does. There's trade-offs, but it also matters like how much turnover you get in a certain role, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, true.
I mean, so there's personal preference, but there is definitely some productivity gains having shared general email addresses, and then you don't have to worry about someone comes in. Yeah, because then let's just say I'm trying to schedule with you. Now I have to remember this person's name. Now that person's not there in 6 months. Now I have to remember a new person versus just knowing, oh, if I want to schedule a meeting, I go to EA at blah, blah, blah.
Got it. What if we, and fix it. Okay, so I should probably take a side note. For those of you who are watching and listening, we're going to get to some like real work brainstorming around some of the sticky points in my business because there's no way I'm going to let this brilliant mind walk out of this recording studio without leveraging him. This is free consulting.
No
Thank
pun
you
intended.
So much. Hey, exactly.
Got it.
But I'm ching. Okay, so what we do is we have personalized email addresses, and if for some reason that person leaves the team, then we just get their emails and then we forward it to the person who took over the role. Messy, good, not good?
No, you can do that. Like, do you add it as like a secondary email address? So then like
it just bounces.
Yeah, just like goes straight. No, that's totally fine.
Okay.
You know, something that you might want to consider too. So part of that CPR framework that we talked about a bit before, the R is for resources, which is all about documenting your knowledge. Knowledge is SOPs and processes.
Yes.
So something that I've built for myself that I would encourage anyone with an EA to do is document like a manual of you. So that way, anything that the EA learns over time, they put it in this kind of manual of you that then it's just constantly evolving, getting updated. If a new EA comes on board, they get up to speed 100 times faster. So
I'm going to admit something.
Do you have one?
I just hired my first EA.
Ooh.
And so that was one of the first things I said. I want you are essentially creating the SOP because my goal for you is for you to ascend within the organization and take on more responsibility, but I don't want ever to have to train another EA again.
That's fantastic that you came at it with that mentality because I think it's super important in every role that when you hire someone, especially an EA, you give them some growth path. Like, look, you're going to start here, and it could be EA, it could be anything, right. But like this is your growth path. And that's why it's important that we document because if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. That is a company mantra. Okay.
That's
Period.
it.
Okay, drop the mic. That was
Boom.
no. Okay, good. Okay, great. Okay, we're gonna move from there. But so and every time I come up with something, I want you to challenge it. I want to make it better. Like I am highly coachable, and so. But
that EA document, you could have an error log too. So as they make mistakes, they document their errors.
Give me an example of a mistake that she might make.
Write an email back incorrectly, make a wrong scheduling appointment for you.
Okay.
Something incorrect with booking a flight. I don't know. There's a million things that could go wrong.
I'm the one logging it.
No, have them log it.
Okay, great. So then let's say she books me on an aisle seat and I really like a window.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, hey, thank you so much, but I usually prefer a window. She would go to the error log and say, Jasmine prefers window.
Yeah, or that wouldn't be an error. If it were documented already, it wouldn't be an error to me. It would be an error if it were documented and then he or she still books it. That's an error, right?
Okay.
Or something
got it.
Or something that would be, let's say, common sense and like they didn't reply to an email or they didn't do something that's just, you don't need an SOP for like, hey, if someone writes you an email, I want you to respond. And then like, if they don't respond, it's like, well, there was no SOP. So there's common sense. But I think that it's good to have a culture where people are free to make mistakes, but they have to learn from it. It's better if they come to you first telling you, like, hey, I messed up. This is what I learned from it, and I've documented it here, right? For me, the worst is I'm the one to find the mistake. So I find that it's really good to have the type of culture where it's fine to make mistakes, but it's not really fine for me to find it. It's fine if you come to me and tell me about the mistake.
That's great. I like that a lot.
Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. So can you walk me through an example or a case study? I happen to listen to you on a podcast or I see you speak on stage, and then I become a customer. And am I investing in a single course around Slack and communication? And then, so on this podcast, we get into the business of the business. And so while we're going to be getting into like other origin stories and stuff right now, like explain to me the methodology of how you bring somebody on. Like, what is the Ascension model? How are you looking at LTV?
So typically the Ascension model is we have an Inbox Zero program. Okay. That's a standalone program. And usually that is just the most efficient way to get started. In just a few hours of training for not that much money, you could save 3, 5, like literally we've had some people saving 20 hours a week. When you think about the percentage of your time that you allocate to email, some people it's 50% of their work week. Right? Like imagine anything else in your life where you spend 10, 20, 50% of your time with literally zero training. So, and everyone thinks that they kind of use it right, but you don't know, like until you see another way, you think your way is the best. Right? So in this program, we have a framework called RAD, Reply, Archive, Defer. So we teach what Inbox Zero is. Like email should really just be mindset-wise an external to-do list that other people add to, right? Every email, you can either reply, archive, or defer. You shouldn't have way too many. Some people have this folder structure where they think it's organized, but it's really disorganized. They don't have a difference between their inbox and their archive. They're deleting emails instead of archiving. They're not snoozing emails. They're not using filters and rules, right? Like any email that contains the word unsubscribe should just go to an optional folder, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's a probability game, right? If you're getting 100 emails a day, the ones that have the word unsubscribe or opt out probably have a lower probability of importance than like if I email you directly, right? So you probably want to be looking in your inbox multiple times a day for the things with higher probability of importance, and then maybe once a day this other folder that has a lower probability. So still nothing. I understand
why you started the game sports betting business, like the probability here. Okay, I'm getting a probability.
Well, yeah, and back to my roots without high frequency.
I'm never going to send you a newsletter because it'll probably go into the other inbox. But I did learn a really important thing during Vive. I had asked you during our training, I said, I pitched you. It was rather embarrassing, but I'm like, hey, you missed every shot you didn't take. And so when we were in the Vive training, I had said, do you do podcast? Because I'd love to get you on my podcast. And you said yes, but there's been plenty of times that people had said yes, and then you kind of get like I disappear after. And I said, I'm going to email you, Nick, and then I'm going to set a reminder because you shared that with us.
Oh, there you go.
To follow up.
Oh, no. After you asked, I looked, I was honored to be invited to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So somebody comes in through Inbox Zero. What's the optimal customer journey here?
So usually people start with that, X number of team members. We do the transformation. Then they get the rest of their team on that.
Okay.
And then it depends, right? But usually after that, then they'll go into a yearly program where they get access to all the other trainings that we have. So like Slack or Microsoft Teams or Asana or Coda. Then I do monthly Ask Me Anythings or
is it
AI.
Team access or team seats?
It's per person.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's the model on the leverage side.
Got it.
And then, then it splinters off, right? So after we do that transformation, they might want to get the rest of their team in Inbox Zero or get them trained. They might be like, holy crap, if you could do this in my email, let's do this in Slack and Asana and all these other tools.
Like it.
Some people also then just hire me for private consulting or do the workshops that we do or things like that.
Ah, so good. Okay.
Or public speaking.
Okay. That was so good. And I went on a tangent, but this is about the business of the business. And so what I like to do is open possibilities for people to look at a particular skill set, or how I really liked how you just reverse engineered. Like, hey, because I'm actually doing something that's not scalable, the consulting, I'm actually finding the patterns that can serve a market that wouldn't be able to afford my consulting. And so you're offering like an entire ascension model.
Totally.
That's cool.
I mean, we started off doing custom consulting and like, you know, it wasn't, I don't want to poo-poo on that. Like, you know, sometimes the money was great and you work with a huge company and they want to pay you a lot of money, but it's not scalable. And, you know, doing custom rollouts or custom this, it's hard to scale. Versus training, much more scalable, higher profit margin, but also you can help a lot more people without nearly as much headache.
Yes.
So for the unscalable stuff, you know, on a select basis, we'll do private consulting. Now we're moving more into the model though, rather than swapping dollars for hours, how do you make it performance based?
Oh my God, you're the second person today.
Yeah.
Okay, so
which is not an easy thing to figure out,
not.
but ultimately, because sometimes it's kind of frustrating as the entrepreneur, where you know you're about to add $1 million, $10 million to the bottom line, and then you get paid nicely, but you get paid a small fraction of that. So how do you get paid for the value?
I can't even right now. This is part of the brainstorming session that I want to like, and I felt very uncomfortable bringing it up on the podcast because there's a lot of aspects to the business that are behind the scenes. These are revenue streams that we've built out that we don't really have to talk about because we have inbound and people and building out a personal brand to appear a certain way. So part of the brainstorming would be the exact poo-pooing on the consulting and just the processes of consulting. But then I'm just gonna be hella selfish and be like, what did you learn? Because on the car ride here, because you and I were being productive and I was working, much to the chagrin of my beautiful, amazing production assistant who drove us here, and I didn't say a single word, I sent out a bid. And I'm like, this whole system is freaking broken. And so I want your help fixing that. But before we do that, before I get super selfish, we talked about the business of the business. We talked about the ascension model. We talked about CPR. I want to make sure that we're doing justice to one very important thing that blew my mind. You showed in the call with Vive, you had said there's a lot of miscommunication because the more people that you bring into an equation, the more likelihood it's going to be a hot mess.
So let's start with a question, right? Have you ever felt like you're drowning in work and you just need to hire that one other person, and then that's going to be the end all be all, and it's going to solve all of your problems? So let's just use that as the precursor, right? So, but oftentimes you hire that person, 3 months later, you're drowning in work just as much as before.
Yeah.
A big mistake that I find entrepreneurs in terms of vocabulary or leaders saying is like, oh, we need to hire someone. You don't need to hire someone. What you're really saying is you need more capacity, you need more capability, and you think that hiring is the only strategy that's going to work to give you that result, right? It's like people don't want to buy a drill. They want the hole that the drill is going to produce to hang the frame, but ultimately they want a frame hung, right? And so buying the drill is just a step in that process, right? But if there's another way to do it, you know, super glue or something, like maybe you don't need a drill. So let's just start with that. So first, it's you want more capacity, capability. Now, every person that you hire, it's not just the recruiting, onboarding, training, salary that you're paying this invisible extra complexity factor that gets introduced, and that's what we're talking about. So it's the same as from cellular, like from network theory, right? If you're the only person that owns a cell phone, it's worth nothing. Now, 2 people own a cell phone, it's worth a little bit more because you have 1 person to talk to. Every person that gets added to a cellular network, the network becomes exponentially more valuable, right? There's exponentially more combinations of people that you can talk to. It's the same applied to business. Every person you add to your team, to your organization, there's exponentially more ways for information to get lost, miscommunicated, so on and so forth. So the graphic, it's going to show, you know, when you're a 3-person team, there's 3 ways to connect. 3 dots, you connect the dots. There's 3 ways that you can transfer information. When you go to a 5-person team, now you connect all the lines and all the dots with lines. Now there's 10 ways that you can transfer it. You go to a 10-person team, now there's 45 ways, right? A 100-person team, there's 4,950 ways. So it's an exponential equation. It's n times n minus 1 over 2. So in the 100 case, it's 100 minus 99 over 2. So 99 times 50. So whatever your team is, you could do the math yourself and you could see how many different ways there is for information to get transferred. And literally every person you add it, that's in some cases, that's the most expensive part of the hiring. It's not the salary, but you don't see it. You know, you don't see that on a balance sheet or a P&L statement, but it's there, and it is harder to manage more people. It's exponentially harder. So everything I'm about is how do you maximize revenue per team member, profit per team member? So back to the performance, like one metric of success could be for something like that is, hey, we're going to take your revenue per team member from X to Y, and we want a percentage of that.
Oh, that'd be amazing. That would be amazing. Okay, so as we get into the possibility of brainstorming, how best do we set this up? Like if I'm gonna bring you my poo so you can poo on it, how do we fix this? Like when you come in and you look at my business, how do we best frame this up?
Well, I mean, why don't we start with this? So what is either sucking your soul, wasting time, stuff that doesn't light you up that you do on a daily or weekly basis? And why don't we talk about that and see if there's ways that we can get that off your plate? And then the next step would be, more generally across your team, what's low-level work that no one on your team likes doing, or that your team is complaining about, or there's just inefficiencies that you see on a team level. And let's talk that through and try to brainstorm, is there a way to clean that up?
Okay, well, can you just call me out? Because what I will say is we've done a lot of work about time optimization and things that I need to be pulled out. We've done time audits. We're currently doing another time audit of myself and the leadership team. So very important to us. We are a systems and process-driven team. I feel very proud to say that. We're tiny, but we're mighty.
How big is the team?
There are 6 full-time employees and then 4 contractors.
Cool.
Yeah, but when you showed that the grid of 10, I was just like, yep, a team of 10 in all
45
the different
ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was just like, okay, this is where I have this beautiful opportunity to come in and be like, we're going to get bigger. Not because I want to or it sounds cool, but I only, once we've completely stretched out our capacity, would bring on somebody, but I have the systems and processes to set them for success.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I am so stressed. I have no hours in my day, and I have looked at everything, and everything that is on my to-do list is something that only I can do, at least at this point. And so when we see there is a major revenue opportunity for us, a lot of the times that the people want the consulting, they want to come to me. Even though we have set up preliminary protocols, verifications, see how viable this opportunity or client is, or who's making the introduction, we have done all of those things, but it seems like we're not having a standardized way or an offer because everybody wants it done a little bit differently.
For custom consulting?
Yes. And to me, I look at this and I'm just like, I don't even know how the team and I are looking at this like, how do we systematize this? It feels like it's very specific to a client. And sometimes they want 3 meetings for ultimate clarity, and then they want the legal team sitting in, and all of these different structures. And there's a part of me that when you had said, performance-based, I think that would radically change the type of clients that we would be working with. But then I feel like that's a whole nother expose because I'm like, well, I'll get into your numbers. How messy are these? What are your conversions? You want me to win, but is the lever broke? And so I just I feel like there's opportunity, and I feel like it's a hot mess. And I think, how do I start systematizing at least some aspects of it to start saving us time?
So tell me a little bit about your business. What's the business model? And then also tell me a little bit about the different technologies that you guys use. How do you guys work together?
Oh, we are getting so integrated. I think I'm sweating.
And let's just start there and see where the conversation goes.
Dealing with a PhD with productivity, and I'm like, I think I'm good, but I'm literally a 4th grader.
Well, let me also say though, no one is at full productivity. I just make the assumption that I'm doing everything wrong and that there's a better way to do something. So with AI and all these new tools, there's always a better way. There's not a single thing that any of us do where it's I would say fully optimal. Now, there's something that maybe is good enough and there's lower hanging fruit and you should focus on that. But I think having a student mindset is really important no matter what stage you are in your entrepreneurial journey?
My aspiration is always to be the dumbest in the room, and so I'm very well qualified. So let's begin.
I don't think so.
I think it behooves that there is an origin story, and there seems to be a 6-year iteration and a beginning. I dropped out of law school because my mom had brain cancer. I decided I wanted to become a photographer, and I didn't own a camera. I built a 6-figure business in 11 months. Then we continued to grow by creating educational resources and starting a digital store for photographers. Companies started looking at what I was doing, asking me to create content for their businesses for photographers. This was before the influencer. I did that and I realized I was trading time for dollars. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. Then they said, can we hire you as a consultant? I said, what is this word called consultant? I consulted for a year and a half and then I realized I was still trading time for dollars, although I was making more. I said, what would be the next scalable jump for me to serve more people? I got into course creation. I created multiple 7-figure revenue streams on the back of courses. Then I said, people want more continuous. How do I diversify our revenue streams? I created a membership. It got off to a great start, another 7-figure revenue stream. And then I realized there was a ton of friction between our membership and the promise of the membership, which was to help small business owners market their business. We were making them create the content, pull down the content, either put it out in real time or schedule it. And so we thought to ourselves, how do we create synergies and remove the friction? So in 2021, hired a CTO, became an official SaaS company. I don't know a single line of code. I don't know anything about tech. That is the origin story. We spent about 6 years building to that point. We now have a president who sits on the inside of Social Curator. It is $59 a month. We serve small business owners. It's a machine. The team was like, well, why don't you have Nick go through our systems for Social Curator? I'm like, no, the thing is freaking, it's a chef's kiss. This is what business owners dream of. My time there is so small, the team is going with it and growing. Another arm of the business is courses. I feel like we've systematized our courses and the way that we launch our courses. Now, what we don't really talk about is consulting. I used to do small hourly consulting, and then I realized that companies would pay a lot more, not just for an hour, but for a project. So they would have me come in, I would be consulting based on the project, and then they started asking for deployment because we possess a skill set that many business owners just don't get.
So what's an example of the type of project?
Okay, so they would come in and they're like, what's going to be our marketing strategy? How do we deploy it to, let's say, a segment of our audience? How do we start testing this? How do you say, we need you to lay it out for us. Our team can take it and run. To me, that always felt like a sweet spot because I'm just like, okay, we've done this. We feel really good about this. Then there's organizations who are just like, what you speak of, this digital marketing is pure magic. And I'm like, okay, well, we can't deploy on the strategy because you need these pieces together. And they're like, how do we begin these pieces? And I'm like, oh. So then I think to myself, okay, do I try to take a referral fee to send them out to say like, hey, this company needs a community? Do I send them out to a community manager and then I lose that lead? And I'm like, or do we bring it in-house? We can do this stuff in our sleep. But then I'm like, oh, the pressure on the team to actually do deployment. Now, it would still be in a strategic way. We're not going to go in and actually physically build the community. It's to go into their team and say, who's responsible for what? But every company wants something very different, but it's very lucrative if we go in and start doing the deployment.
What kind of businesses are hiring you?
It is all over the place. Today's bid was going to a multi-level marketing company.
Huh. But you said that the SaaS company is crushing it?
Yeah, it's doing so well. I love it.
So is there...
the nature. I mean, we can get into a business diagnostic.
Yeah. I mean, whatever's going to add the most value to your listeners right now. But I'm just wondering, like, if you were to just completely, what would happen if you just totally shut down consulting? You put all that energy into just scaling the
consulting thing is new. So we have attempted to scale Social Curator, and due to the nature of the person that we serve, industry-wide, the churn of the entrepreneur is, despite how sticky we are, like the business itself doesn't survive. So no one's paying $59 a month for marketing if their business isn't surviving. It's a very short time span.
Got it. So what kind of, who's the end customer? Like a brand new entrepreneur?
A small business owner, somebody that's doing less than 60,000, maybe has a VA. They know they need to show up on social media. They don't know the how. They don't have a plan. They don't have a strategy. Consistency is a big deal for them. So we create coaching. We create resources. We create education. It is basically a digital marketing agency. But the problem is, because people don't have time, they're like, how am I going to go in and learn? Even though all the tools are here for me, how am I going to learn how to do this? Then how am I going to stay consistent with it? It becomes, I need to take you 8 steps before you actually get to this point, and people are like, I'm so overwhelmed and my business isn't surviving.
Got it.
Yeah.
And is it the same people, these 10 people across all these different revenue streams, the consulting, the tech?
Yeah.
And so all the same collaboration tools, like you're using Slack for all these things for you.
So Notion is like our main hub. It's the Bible. Asana for task management. Slack for team communication, and we don't email each other unless it's on a very professional capacity.
Were you guys doing this before you read the book, or?
No.
Okay, so after you read the book, you made a couple changes?
No, I'm so sorry. This is how we built the system.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
So you figured it out yourself naturally.
I think that I really want I want a good, healthy work-life balance, and I became like very dogmatic. And I'm like, this is what belongs here. This is what belongs here, and there's clear accountability of who dropped the ball where.
Totally. And then you don't have the scavenger hunt where you have to look in like 16 different places to find. On the consulting side, is there an opportunity to do group workshops or group, like for example, we hit the same thing, right? There's only so much you can scale yourself until so productizing things or going group was one of the approaches that we took. So we do these 2-day workshops where we'll get 15, 20 people together.
What's the size of the business that you're attracting for the 15 person?
We have people anywhere from 5 to 100 million usually coming.
So at 100 million, they're not hiring you to come in and do the consulting on that level?
They might do both. So it doesn't, it's not like an either or, right?
Okay.
But, it's good value because it's a fraction of the price of having me come, for X number of days or my team coming X number of days in person. And one person's issue, even if it seems totally different, like the issue you're bringing up, there's other people that maybe have faced that or might have an insight that I wouldn't have, the solution or the ideas generated from your problem might spark someone else to solve something, even if it seems on the surface totally unrelated. So we found these 2-day, let's call it workshops, come with your biggest business issue. Usually people come with a process issue, and we'll figure out a way to use AI and automation to go and automate and AIify that process. Oftentimes though, the conversation that we have to solve your problems, super interesting for the next person, and then that might trigger some other ideas for them. So we found that actually the group much more scalable, and it really didn't take away from the client experience.
Did it impact results or timeliness of results?
Like private consulting is private consulting. So like if I spend X number of hours one-on-one, like we're going to move a bit faster than in a group. But, bang for your buck, like in terms of value, like people are getting a lot of value. On the consulting side though, it's a challenge. Like I don't have like a magic pill for you.
So people come to you, and have you systematized, I don't need to know like the ins and outs of it, but have you systematized these are the options that you have to work with me, or is it you will do some sort of customization?
Yeah, so we have a few different offerings. One, hire me to speak, right? So that's kind of one. That's an easy.
That's my favorite.
That's a nice.
I'll do that all day.
That one's cool, right? One of the things that I do on the leverage side with the training, by the way, is since I don't want to do the implementation, what we've done is, and I don't want to create courses and content in 100 different tools. So I partner with agencies, and then in the cases where I haven't homegrown, instead of vetting people, I'll vet partners. And then I'll bring an agency that's, an expert at a certain tool to come in, and then they'll facilitate the training.
Oh, cool.
And then any of the implementation that happens, we have some type of rev share affiliate type of deal.
Oh,
so that's cool, right? Because then I'm not managing more employees. I'm managing partners, not people. I don't have to create a whole bunch of stuff. My clients, it's a triple win. My clients are getting the best at that thing. The partners are loving it because I'm a lead gen source for them, right? And so everyone's happy in that model. I think that figuring out a way to do performance based in any sort of consulting capacity is the right move, or productizing. But doing custom stuff, it's a challenge. So for your stuff, I wonder, do you have an opportunity? And I think that if it's a really big company, you can't do performance based, and if it's really small, it's not worth your time. So there's like that sweet spot. Maybe it's in that like 5 to 20 million kind of revenue range, maybe, or 5. So whatever it is for you. But how do you get people to just pay for results? At the end of the day, they're hiring you for what result? Like they want more leads. They want to lower their cost of acquiring a customer.
If I looked at this particular bid, they had like 3 very clear objectives.
What were they?
That was to sign up 3 subscriptions, to sign up 3 people, 3 distributors, and for them to post consistently. And how they determine consistency is 3 times a week in a month.
But what result are they hoping for? Well, the other 2 seem concrete. That one, what's the result that they're hoping to get as a byproduct of that?
The halo effect of consistent marketing across like multi-channel.
Got it. So I don't know, did they tell you a number? Like what is it worth to them if they got those 3, what was the first thing you said? 3 partners? Like
they didn't get into like LTV, but I can do like back of the napkin math. And I'm just like, they're going to make a lot of money.
So, I wonder if they'd be open to a conversation where it's, okay, that's your problem. How much are you willing to invest? How much is that problem worth to you? Or how much are you willing to invest to solve that problem? And kind of have the conversation go that way versus pay me a monthly retainer, right? And it's better for them too. Like if that problem is worth $1 million to them and you're like, okay, cool, it's worth $1 million. I'll do it. And you figure out what it's going to cost you. Like I'll do it 80% of what it's worth to you. I'll do it for 80%, 60%, whatever the number is, right? And that's the direction that we're trying to move in.
Can you give me an example? Not saying that you will, but how are you using pay performance in the consulting that you render?
So the types of ways that we're moving in the direction is like, what is this process costing you? And it could be like accounts receivable. It could be back office, nursing home, and there you have physical papers and they've got 100 people, sending out, whatever it is, right? And it's like across all the salaries that you're paying to achieve, to get that job done, what is it costing you? $1 million a month. Cool. So instead of paying me to go in and like clean things up, it's like, how about I just take over accounts receivable for you, right? And like now you don't have to worry about it anymore, and you were paying $1 million. How about you pay me $800,000 a month? And then it's on me to use AI and automation and Asana and all these different tools properly. Now it's on me, not on you. But I think if you're confident in kind of the value you're bringing, it's a much better deal. It's a much better deal for you to try to figure out performance, right? So it could be, in my context, it could be what are you paying to perform that process? Could be, what's your revenue per team member? What do you hope, is that a goal for you to get it from 200 to 400,000? Like, and then it's just very measurable. And then obviously efficiency plays a big role in revenue per team member. I'm not giving them marketing strategies to affect revenue, but assuming that, because it's a partnership at the end at that point, it's not a, dollars for hours. It's like, hey, is this a two-way good fit, right? Because you have risk too. Your success and you making money is also reliant on them being a good partner. So it's not a one-way interview, it's a two-way interview. Like, let's see. And if I see someone where I believe they can handle the revenue stuff properly and I see gross inefficiency under the hood, I don't want to come in like the Grim Reaper and say, okay, let's fire half the people. But if I see an opportunity where, hey, I can tighten this up, you're not going to need to hire more people, or there's a few underperformers, let's get rid of that and just put a hiring freeze and let's just clean this up. You go and take care of revenue, I'll deal with this.
Sounds like the dream.
The direction that we've been moving in.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, so this was like very, very helpful. And I feel like it's added a lot of clarity for me about really taking a good cold hard assessment of like, what do we want to do? Like, what are we willing to offer? And like, would we even entertain we could do that? Well,
the software company, do you have the opportunity though to charge more, like have like a bronze, silver, gold package? Like, do you have the opportunity instead of $59 a month? Is there some premium version that's like $1,000 a month and you go after bigger clients? That's like another thing that I'm wondering too.
And there's also like, not to give like too much away, but there was also a play here where we distinctly felt like we could white label our platform and customize it for this organization for them to use in all of the language. And we use AI. We have like Dottie, she's your social media manager. And so we build profiles. And so when the prompt is given, they don't have to add things that are commonly added, like their name, their city, their job, like their descriptions. What do they call so they build out a profile so that the captions are returned and the ideas are returned specifically for their ideal audience. To do this at scale with a multi-level marketing company becomes like amazing.
Well, I think also another important question, which we didn't get to, is like, what are your personal goals too? Like, how many hours a week do you want to work? Like, what does success look like to you? Because I think the strategy, you have to kind of reverse engineer off of that. If it's, I'm trying to build $1 billion company and I'm willing to work 100 hours a week, it's like, it's a different strategy potentially than I want to have a lifestyle business. And if I make a couple $1 million a year, but work 30 hours a week, I'm super happy, and there's nothing wrong with either, but I think your personal goals really drive a lot of the decisions also that you have to make there.
What are your personal goals?
Well, I want to be intellectually stimulated with what I work on. I want to be making enough money where it covers the lifestyle I want to have without having to kill myself. But yeah, I want to make a lot of money, and along the way I want to be doing things that give me joy and light me up.
So of the current things that you're doing right now, what is the most intellectually stimulating thing?
Well, the algorithmic sports betting's been pretty intellectually stimulating, to be honest. It's like really going back to my roots from, the high frequency trading days.
Okay.
And football season's about to start, so we're about to be able to start stress testing everything that we've been building.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. There's different aspects of all of it that light me up. I like the speaking. I love my mastermind group. We do these amazing trips. We do the 2-day workshops. We also do a week long where I rent out a hotel and I'll bring 35 people down, and it's highly curated, so everyone's awesome. And then, back to the ascension model, we'll do that, and it's really fun, it's profitable, but it's like good people, you build deep connections, and then organically things come out after that without having to, be super like, oh, okay, like let's get them to stage 1 to stage 2. It's just, let's spend 6 days together, have some fun, and we'll have some conversation, and we'll see, is there more that we can do together? So
are these people for the mastermind making a commitment for like a designated amount of time, or
so we have a year-long mastermind.
Okay.
And so part of that is we have an annual week-long event.
Okay.
And the interesting thing with that, I don't know, I'm a part of various groups, and the structure primarily in a lot of groups is you're sitting in a room, and from like 9 to 5, there's speakers kind of nonstop and maybe some exercises. I always find that the value though in these groups is the hallway conversation, the coffee, the breakfast. It's who's in the room and having good conversations. And I find that a mistake that a lot of these people, mistake might be harsh. I always wish, why don't we have more break time? So a few years ago, I went down to Baja in Todos Santos. Do you know who Chip Conley is?
I do.
So I went down to his place down in Baja, and for those of you listening that don't know who Chip is, he wrote a famous book called Peak, and he was like the chief strategy officer of Airbnb. He was he was Brian Chesky's mentor. Amazing guy. I went down to his hotel down in Baja, the Modern Elder Academy, and we hit it off. We were having coffee one day, and he didn't know me from a load of wood, and I was like, you know what? if you're smart enough to mentor Brian Chesky, you're probably good enough to mentor me. How about we do some calls and see if we can figure some stuff out here?
And you just met him because you were a patron at his hotel?
So the backstory to that is I have Eric and Alyssa who are now part of my mastermind group, but they're good friends. Eric used to be the CEO of Inc. and Fast Company, and Alyssa is like the world's #1 executive coach. We were having dinner with a group of 10 people, and they said, hey, we're doing a trip down to Baja. Who wants to come? And I was the only one that raised my hand. So I third wheeled this romantic trip down in Baja with them. It was great. We were doing like sunset walks, the three of us. It was just like,
amazing.
It was just really hilarious. Anyway, so they knew Chip, and I went down. They're amazing people, Eric and Alyssa. So we had a great time, and that's how I got to know Chip. And I made the ask, because if you said the phrase before, 100% of the things you don't swing at, you strike out. So I just made the ask, hey, would you be willing to do this? And he's such a nice, generous human being. He said, sure, let's give it a try. And after a few months, I was like, Chip, I feel bad that I'm just getting this free advice from you. How could I give back? Would it help you if like maybe one day I organize something and rent it out? I didn't have these aspirations of running a mastermind group. He said, actually, we had a cancellation. How about next month you rent it out? And I was like, oh, okay, well, 4 weeks to like pull together 30 people to come down to Mexico. It's not the easiest thing to figure out, but I'll figure it out. And so I started thinking like what's missing from all the groups I'm a part of. And it kind of just struck me. The formula was simple. Go to a great place, curated group of people, and just give them a lot of free time, and like no one's going to have a bad experience. And so that's what we did. Like I organized it. It's free time all day until 2:00. And then one of the guys, you're going to meet him at dinner tonight. He used to play for the Jets. His name's Josh Martin. Awesome guy. He would lead morning workouts, or they had like a meditation teacher there. This guy, Teddy, amazing, but all optional. So we do morning workout optional, then breakfast together, talk to people. Sometimes people want to do like a morning sunrise coffee with me, and we'll look at a sauna or whatever it is and talk process off the clock.
Stop talking about my dream trip. Sauna and coffee. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Like, or whatever you want, or a beach walk, and then, then it's free time. Go to your room, do your Zooms, connect with people. Like when I had my book coming out, one of the guys was a well-known New York Times bestselling author, John Levy, and he sat down for like 4 hours with me and mapped out my entire marketing launch plan. So you get these experts in different things, right? If you came, you'd be an expert at marketing that a lot of people would be able to get a lot of value out of you. And like you would meet, the former CHRO of Chipotle or the CMO of Sony or like other good connections. And then from 2 to 6, we have hot seats. So people share anything they're stuck on. That could range from a business, but also personal. Sometimes people, should I break up with my boyfriend? Should I have a kid? And so we're talking that through. And then there's also talks on cybersecurity or culture or whatever it is. Chip is there, and he'll give a talk. And then we have dinner and, have drinks, go to the jacuzzi, whatever. And we do that for 6 days. So you really get to know people. And so we did that a few years ago now, and it went so well.
30?
Yeah, we sold it out.
In a month.
And it just went so well. People are like, can we do this again? So that was the genesis of the Mastermind.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to meet these brilliant people.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Okay.
And that's just fun.
Okay, right. But I think you have to teach me how to be fun, because I full on land in and I'm like, optimize for business. So it's just like
I'm more like you actually.
Okay. Well, anyway, somebody's gonna have to teach us. Somebody will have to teach us, like, this is the system for fun.
Do you have a mastermind group, or have you tried one?
Well,
so what's your mastermind?
I swear by masterminds. It's literally like, this is a cheat code for success.
Totally.
And started them early in my digital marketing experience. And now I'm doing 3 programs. So I do something called Hampton. I do a peer-based mastermind, and then the Vive program. So
you're a member of 3.
I am a member of 3. I also host the Jasmine Star Mastermind.
Ooh, and what's that about?
It's for 7-figure entrepreneurs. We talk about scaling, and a lot of things that we see, a lot of the pressure points and deep desires from that like 1 to 5 stage is optimizing their systems. I take very little credit. I work with a team of just system ninjas. And so being able to like go through that, speak to those pressure points, but we also do hot seats. It's like, where are they at? And then that 5 to 10 range is really going to be like scaling the team. What is the culture? How do we start leveraging this? And I've always believed the first mastermind I ever hosted, the #1 piece of feedback that I'm like, hey, I want to know how to get better. It's give us more free time. And I was like, yeah, lesson learned. It is free time in the connection.
Totally. Yeah. The hardest part for me is just curating the right group of people,
Absolutely.
right? And saying no to a lot of people in order to really get the group to that really tight, high-level group that you want it to be.
Absolutely.
So on your side, what's the key area of focus for you going forward right now? Or what's most exciting for you?
Oh, Are you turning this podcast on me?
Yeah,
Nick,
now
are we really going there?
Welcome to my podcast. This is your host, Nick Sonnenberg. It's a takeover.
Oh man. I think I really, really, really want to get a good idea of how to start attracting and cultivating and courting A players. I think that
on your team.
I feel like if I could say something nice about myself, I feel like I'm really good at establishing long-term relationships and finding a really good fit for a role. I think that's why we don't have very high churn. We do have a very small team, but these people are hardwired for systems and hardwired to win. It's a very scoreboard-driven team.
Nowadays, with 10 people, you can get a lot done with AI and Are you guys using a lot of AI?
Yeah. I mean, big time. The premise of our digital offer is to facilitate that and make it easier for the small business owner that feels like really intimidated by it. But how we leverage it on the inside of the team is incredible.
I mean, I think we're going to start seeing for the first time in history, the first $1 billion solo companies, like one-person teams, two-person teams that are hitting $1 billion.
I completely see that. So I think if I'm like actually thinking about the future, it's how do I attract A-level talent? How do I have that like Olympian mindset? How do I get somebody who's humble, gritty, somebody who wants to win, systems driven? I think it's like a perfect.
Well, I wonder if you need to hire more people or if you could get another 20 or 30% out of each of these people that you already have.
I think if I was being really honest, 90% of the team, it's like I feel like I'm getting 100. I feel like honestly, my team is going to listen to this, so I'll just be like very honest. I feel that at least 3 of our team players are literally doing the job of 3 people. I say that to their face. I'm like, I would take you on your worst day than anybody else.
That's awesome.
I know.
I mean, that's honestly, kudos to you. It's the best skill I think that you can have as a CEO and entrepreneur is the ability to track and retain and recruit good talent.
Thank you. I think that's my biggest takeaway is other than like celebrating our systems and looking at how to get a heck of a lot better with them and then reminding people that we had to learn the hard way, but it's not necessary because I read Come Up for Air after Vive. So Vive sent us all a book.
Oh, cool.
And so I think I took a picture and I sent it to you. I was like, legitimately, I'm reading the book and it's all buttressing the stuff that we spent years trying to build. So if there is a person who wants to get the book, would you want to go into your website? Do you want to go to Amazon?
So they could go to comeupforair.com for that. And we have bonus resource. Like the book's like a 320 page or so book, and I'm a productivity nerd. So like if I weren't, this would be like a 1,200 page book.
I would agree. I think you got a lot into it.
I really packed it tight in there. When I was pitching HarperCollins on the book, my publisher, I said, look, nowadays there's a lot of books and it's like one concept and they somehow dragged it on for 300 pages with a bunch of stories. I'm like, how about we write like a real dense but like actionable tips and tricks. Every page there's something to take away. So we couldn't fit it all into the book. So on comeupforair.com, there's a bunch of bonus resources that go along with the book. Quizzes, cheat sheets, so on and so forth. So if you're interested in this material, the book is a great place to start. And then if you need training in any of these things, getleverage.com is where you can find more information on the training.
Nick, thank you for coming and speaking. And this podcast totally took a different turn than I had expected. I feel very open and I'm like, I'm a very private person. And so for us to be talking about like where I'm at in the business, the systems of the business, the teams of the business, like the reality of it. And I'm like, thank you for just showing me how to show up in a more humane way, but also teach people along the way.
Well, I mean, after the podcast separately, if you want to do a Zoom with you and your team and just do like a quick, hour Zoom jam session, share screen and have me take a look at things. If there's anything that I can see to optimize anything, I'm happy to.
And I would only do that. I would only do that on the condition that I would be able to sit with you and your team to talk about how to optimize way for organic traffic. Get this message out because it is so needed and it's so good.
As good as I am at operations, that's how bad I am at marketing. So I would take you up on that one.
Great. Then it's a win-win. But I will take you up on the condition that you take me up. Ladies and gentlemen, comeupforair.com. This is where we want you to start the journey of getting to know Nick. Do you like to connect on social? You said you're not that, like maybe marketing's not your strength, but do you want people connected?
Yeah.
Where do you want to send people on social? Where are you most active? Where are you sharing the most value?
LinkedIn is where I'm most active.
Beautiful. And that's just by your name?
Nick Sonnenberg.
Beautiful. We'll be sure to link it in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening to The Jasmine Star Show.